So over the summer reading committee read a bunch of books, and then
we all suggested our own books, and then
when school was back in session, we brought them all together and chose 3 for all of us to read.
We had a lot of meetings throughout the school year. We went through a bunch of books
and we discussed them, how much our community will enjoy them, and sort of what discussions we can get out of them.
And we ultimately whittled it down to one book, which is Darius the Great is Not Okay.
And like the way that the world really perceives Iranian people influences the novel. And I kind of just wanted to talk about the timing that we had in picking this book. Whenever we picked this book, it was like right in the middle of our issues with Iran, when everybody was like, oh, we're going to get bombed, like all of this crazy stuff.
I feel like the timing was really good because you were right. We've been seeing Iran in the news as like the missile crisis and all that stuff. And I think it was good because then whenever you see Iran in the news, you think, oh, tea, culture, instead of like, ooh, missiles, turbines, agrabah.
I wasn't aware of all the immense culture that it had, such as tea drinking and family kind of showed up together.
Yeah.
And I think that over the course of reading this book, that really helped.
Like, what does Stephen see in Darius that makes him like so upset?
His dad is like kind of always labeling him, and he doesn't really fit into one box because like first of all, he's mixed, so he obviously can't really fit into like one box of like, oh, I'm Iranian, or one box of American. So like that already shows that he can't fit into one box.
But like his dad has a really big capacity to be one of his only allies, and then completely ignores the opportunity. And I don't know, it's not a likable character.
Yeah, because I mean, the potential is there for like an ally, but he's not taking it.
There's something that Sohrab says that I think Darius is really able to relate to in that apology scene. So what's that common ground, do you think?
I think that like in page 130, Sohrab says that it was nice, like not being the one that Alireza was making fun of. I think like since like the reason that they became friends at the first place was because they have a part that they can sympathize to each other, and like I'm pretty sure that Darius also understood like why he felt like that, why he acted like in that way.
That's actually what I was getting at, is that passage right there where he says, it was nice, not being the only one that Alireza was making fun of. So, I think Sohrab and Darius become such good friends because Darius is actually able to relate to him as being someone that gets made fun of.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. Today I am making Persian flatbread featured in Darius the Great is Not Okay. I have my recipe right here. It is called Nani Barbie.
I thought it would be cool to cook a Persian dish called ashe reshte. It's a sort of noodle soup made out of different kinds of beans, herbs, and a lot of vegetables, and of course the noodles.
Hi guys, Jason here. Today I'm going to be making Persian tea, and this is really cool because this is actually my first time making Persian tea in my entire life.
Kotab dessert, it's basically a dumpling-shaped dessert which has its wrappings and its fillings. And
hello, I'm Andors, and I'm going to be making faluda. Faluda is a Persian lime and rosewater granita with rice noodles.
Today we're going to be making ashe reshte. It's a dish commonly made in Iran and Azerbaijan for the holiday Nowruz, but it can be made at any other time of the year too.
To make fest in June, you need 1 large yellow onion, 8 ounces of walnuts, 1 cup of pomegranate concentrate, 2 pounds of skinless chicken, 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/4 cup of water.
So, you will need a teapot, a stove, a flavor infuser, and any kind of tea leaves. For this, I'm going to be using mint tea leaves, which actually my mom picked from her garden. These are fresh mint leaves that were picked from our garden.
Here are the ingredients for our wrappings. Basically, Potep is a dessert, sort of like it's a dumpling shaped dessert. And here are the ingredients for the wrappings of it instead of the fillings. We'll get to that part later.
So today I made for you a traditional Persian dish, ash reshteh.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Oh, yum. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yummy.
After freezing overnight and then defrosting, the Faluda reached a much more finished state.
In the book Darius the Great is Not Okay, Darius is from two different cultures, but he doesn't feel like he belongs to either of them. Food is a way that helps Darius connect to Persian culture. Fesenjoon is a very traditional Persian dish, so for Darius to like that, it helps him connect to Persian culture more. Cooking Fesenjoon helped me better understand Persian culture.
I learned a lot about Persian cuisine during the process of researching the recipe and trying to figure out what ingredients I need. The way this cooking experience relates to the story is that I am cooking something that Darius's family enjoyed, and the dish brought joy to the family. We were able to cook something new and it paid off.
So I'm finally at the end of this project, and I think the three main takeaways are forgetting the stereotype I have of cooking traditional dishes and discovering new ingredients and using that in my future cooking, and finally just really having patience.
So I'm also going to teach you how to introduce yourself in Arabic. In Arabic, there are different ways of introducing yourself, informal and formal, and there are also different words for men and women. So hello would be marhaban, and then you say ana, your name. So for me, it would be marhaban, ana Allison. Marhaban means hello, and ana means I am. After that, if you're talking to a man, you say Suritu bilika ika, which means nice to meet you. And for a woman, you would say Suritu bilika iki. There's a difference between formal greetings and informal greetings in Arabic. In informal greeting, the one we just learned, it translates to "Hi, I'm your name. Nice to meet you." But for the formal one, we would be learning, "Hi, my name is your name. I'm honored to meet you." So for men, it would be "Marhaban, is me your name?" which means, "Hello, my name is blank." So in my case, it would be "Marhaban, is me Allison." And then you say "Tasharaftu bimarifatika" for men, which means "I am honored to meet you." And for women, it would be "Tasharaftu bimarifatiki." So the difference between both is for men, it would end with rifatika instead of rifatiki, which is for women. In parts of the Middle East, they respect politeness a lot. So when you enter a house or a room, it's only polite to greet everyone. So depending on the place, some you offer your right hand for a handshake or 3 kisses on the cheeks.
Hi, I'm Molly, and this is my Darius the Great is Not Okay project. For my project, I bought multiple new teas from the tea shop that I like in Greencastle Coffee Roasters, and I'm going to taste them and generally see how I feel about them. And then I also studied the benefits of drinking tea on a daily or weekly basis, which was really interesting. I really enjoyed this project. I think that I would definitely drink the Manhattan Earl Grey tea on like a daily basis, the licorice tea on maybe like a 3-month basis, the green sencha tea probably on like a weekly or a daily basis. I really like this one. And the Rainbow Rooibos, this one wasn't my favorite. Maybe like once a year if I was looking for something like it. So, thank you so much. I really enjoyed my project, and I really enjoyed Darius the Great is Not Okay.
For my Darius the Great is Not Okay project, I decided to teach my friends how to play Rook. Rook is very similar to the game 500, or Bridge, if you've ever played any of them, but basically it's a trick-taking card game where you're trying to score points by collecting the cards which everyone plays together. After playing 2 or 3 games of Rook, I think that I can make my final opinion, which would be that it's definitely a very fun game, and I can see how they'd play it in Darius. It's kind of structured around socializing with each other, even though there's no quote-unquote table talk allowed. It's based around reading your teammate and then your opponents to try and get to know their tell. And I think while doing this, you get to know them a bit better, which is very crucial detail of Darius the Great is Not Okay, because they go to Iran here in Yazda feeling very left out from the rest of the family. I mean, especially Darius, but his father's very similar to him in this case. And I think that by playing Rook with his brother-in-law and his father-in-law as well, that he gets to know them a lot better, which goes with the theme of the book as well. I feel that obviously this game's very fun, and it was definitely a good choice for them to include it in the book.
Through the extension, I've learned greetings, asking if a person knows English or not, and counting in Farsi. Through Farsi alone, it can be implied that Persian culture, Iran specifically, holds high regard for formality, with very strict rules for formal or informal expressions. I'm very surprised to learn that even some numbers have their own formal versus informal version, and Persian's affiliation with French is also suggested in their day-to-day language. Overall, I had a great experience learning and researching on Farsi. Thanks to Darius the Great is Not Okay, I'm introduced to a completely new culture and learned so much about this new culture and really widened my grasp. So I had a very great time with this book as well as this extension learning.
So for me, bridging the divide means breaking the internal walls between two people and being able to be yourself with that person, right? So in the book, Darius the Great is not okay, right? Darius oftentimes had difficulty talking freely to people, including people who were close to him, like his dad. So I felt that the internal walls between them stayed strong, right, until they were honest with each other at the end of the book and talked about the depression, and how it affected them. The whole, how being suicidal was affecting him, and how it kind of stopped him from being able to connect with Darius, and how it just grew.
Yeah.
So after that interaction, there was an obvious change in the relationship because the time they spent together lasted longer, and they opened up more about themselves.
So during my childhood, I live in Vietnam, and at an early age, everybody is expected to use chopsticks, But guess what? I didn't know how to use chopsticks.
Yeah.
Chopsticks, like literally everyone in Asia, like Vietnam, like at an early age, they knew how to use them, but I didn't. I mean, to others, like it was like painful to them to sometimes watch me butcher my chopstick skills. Have you ever held the chopsticks, Chooks? Do you know how you're supposed to hold the chopsticks at the end of the towards the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't. Like I held it towards like the part where you grab food. And instead of grabbing it, I couldn't grab the food most of the time, so I would just like stab the chopstick with my fork. Stab the food with my chopsticks. I mean, to many, they thought that it didn't belong to like a Vietnamese person, and I wasn't authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not like the Vietnamese way. I mean, at first, I felt pretty like disappointed in myself because I was just terrible at learning on how to using it the quote unquote Vietnamese way. It made me felt like quite disconnected from my roots, bro. I I didn't feel Vietnamese, just like how Darius did. Like he didn't feel Persian when somebody said that, like when his uncle said that he wasn't Persian enough. But like after thinking about it a lot, I had to bridge the divide. I couldn't let somebody's opinion make me like control my thoughts of how I think about myself.
For my inspired by response to Darius the Great is Not Okay, I decided to make a collage of the front cover of the book. I used photos of Iran to create the cityscape and a red sunset to replicate the red sky seen on the cover. I also added pictures of the mountains that act as a background to the city of Tehran. In order to represent Darius better, I included hobbit holes from The Hobbit as well as images of a future city from the most recent Star Trek movie. I also included photos of a traditional Persian tea set. I then put a few photos together to create likenesses of the two boys on the front cover. Finally, I made the title out of magazine letters, making the first part of the title Darius the Great in black and white, and the end of the title is Not Okay in blue in the same manner as the cover of the book. When I read the book Darius the Great, one of the things that really struck me was how honest Darius was. Everything he said was just so authentic, and part of that, with mental health issues, or even if you don't have mental health issues, just your internal monologue. That was the part that I really focused on, and specifically him and his vision of his dad and how he believed his dad was fundamentally disappointed in him. And also in one of the conversations I had in a discussion, a faculty member actually, who was a parent herself, brought up that she didn't think that the dad was doing anything wrong, he was just trying his best. And obviously that's and probably a lot of the world, we see through the book, that's how they see his dad, but Darius sees him in a very different light. And as I read the book, I saw that this was reflected in all of the adjectives he used to describe him, the verbs, the way, everything he does, even if it's just, my dad was walking to the barbershop, the way Darius describes him, you can see it's tainted by this, my dad is disappointed in me. And so I just wanted to bring this all together in a way that was super visible so that you could really focus in on it and see it. And so I happen to have I accidentally ordered 2 copies of the book. So I figured, why not get a little creative and a little disruptive? And I cut all these pieces out of the book and pasted them together in one. I created a profile of his dad in black and white, and then I pasted all these words and these phrases into his dad's head, I guess. And so you can just see this is, even though the dad is
just like a great person, maybe trying to do his best. Through Darius's view, this is who his dad is.
Hi, I'm Falaki Okonsanya. I'm in 11th grade. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. And for my Inspired by project, I created an artwork. I designed a bag, sort of the messenger bag that Darius had in the story, and I put little pins on it to represent the different aspects of his life that are talked about throughout the book. First of all, the book back says Kellner and Son, because in the book Darius talks about how his dad will never be able to make a bag like that because he's not good at math. But I decided that maybe one day he could, even if it wasn't, Darius being necessarily involved in the math of the company. And the 9 pins I made were, one, his Prozac that he takes for his clinical depression, because I think that has a huge effect on the way that he sees life and the way that he perceives other people and the way that they perceive him. It's also one of the things that really connects him to his dad. And then I have a pin with 4 people or 4 family members, but a question mark instead of Darius, because he feels like he doesn't really fit into their family, because he feels like his sister is like his mom, but also like his dad, but he's just kind of abstract almost. Then I have a pin of soccer boots, but one is missing, because Sohrab tells Darius all the time, your place was empty. And they love to play soccer together, so I thought that was a good way to represent both. There's a square that is sort of a FaceTime call, a Skype call with his grandparents, because he's having a difficult time reconciling those two with them in real life, the people that he saw on the screen most of his life with the real people. Another pin that I have on there is broccoli with a measuring tape around it, because Darius sometimes will mention how his dad is a stickler about his weight and his diet, and that really irritates him. I have a Star Trek pin, because the Star Trek is just the one thing that he gets to do with his dad, and we see that not taken away from him but changed somehow, which kind of throws him off balance because he's not really used to sharing his dad in that space. Then there is a pin about tea, because as we see, tea is a huge part of Darius's identity. It's a huge part of his ties to his culture. It's something that relieves his stress. He likes to do it every day. It's a way for him to connect with people. When going to Iran for the first time, he buys his grandmother tea as a present because he wants to give her something that means something to him. And then there is the jersey, the Team Melly jersey. It is a present from Sohrab, who is his first real friend. And when he wears it, he really feels a strong connection to his Persian culture, because I think that when we say Darius the Great isn't okay, I think he's more than okay. I think he's doing just fine. And I think that we need to represent him in most of his facets, because he's complex and he's complicated, but so is everybody else. And I think that it's really important for us to understand that there are different things that make a person up.
Hi, I'm Monique. I'm in 11th grade. So I wrote a poem, and it goes like this. A walking shadow, walking through a dark tunnel, lost in the sounds of the world. Cars and bikes and whispering trees, they fill my head, drowning out my words. Walking to the park on a semi-decent day, physically I see the clouds clashing before me, but mentally I'm in the same space. Walking through the hallways of my very own home, the aroma of pozole floats from the kitchen to find its way to me. The family gathers to celebrate our blessings, and yet somehow I still find myself alone. And so in this poem, I'm specifically referencing Darius and his relationship with his father, and how he, even with his identity, he always finds himself alone. He doesn't know who to be or what he should be. And so I tried to incorporate some of that and try to put my own feelings in there.
This painting is inspired by the scene in Darius the Great is Not Okay, when Darius and his family are celebrating Nowruz. In the book, the family celebrates the holiday by dancing after dinner. Darius comments on how this is one of the happiest moments of his life, but also remembers that the scene happens every year without him. He once again feels like he doesn't belong in either of his two worlds, Iran or the United States, a common theme throughout the book. Therefore, he is shown to the side, part of the room and the party, but not completely involved. He is observing. I chose to paint this scene because I could picture it so vividly when I read it. The living room, the emotion, the vibrancy. The piece is dynamic, with scarves being thrown and limbs moving wildly. I decided to use the colors from the cover of the book, with the dark orange complementing the bright teal.
For the Inspired by project, I created a model of a lion using Rhinoceros, a 3D designing software. I chose the image of a lion to create for several reasons. First and foremost, it is the national animal of Iran and is the main element of the Iranian lion and sun emblem. Second of all, the lion represents might and courage, which were greatly demonstrated by Darius, who went to his home nation, strived to fit in, and define himself. What is most important among all the reasons, nonetheless, is that lions share similar experiences with Darius, as they have to face challenges with the coming of age. Darius, in the story, faced challenges like any of his peers might, but he fought through challenges that sometimes overwhelmed him. Like a lion who has to defend his pride under increasingly threatening conditions, Darius learned how to embrace himself and challenge the possibilities.